Hello, everybody. It's Wolfang. It is Sunday, October the 8th, and it is 52 degrees. And my camera's being stupid. You know what the heck's going on with it? I was having trouble with it earlier. There we go. That helped a little bit. Anyway, I found an article, and it talks about is it legal to live off grid in the United States? So let me share what this says more than 250,000 people in the USA are living their lives off the grid. But is it illegal to live off grid in the United States? It depends. Living off grid is not as simple as moving to the middle of nowhere. And so they take a closer look. What is off grid living? Off-grid living is a lifestyle that involves sourcing all necessities independently. Electricity, shelter, water, food are not procured through an established framework developed for mass consumption. Established frameworks include, but aren't limited to, power grids, sewer lines, municipal water systems, and grocery stores. Is it illegal to live off grid in the United States? It is technically not illegal to live off grid in the United States. However, certain regulations in different parts of the nation make it almost impossible to live off grid. There are no set rules about off grid living for the country as a whole, and dwelling requirements can vary widely between communities. Having the proper permit is important for off-grid living. Most places will require that you secure building permits for any buildings you're planning to construct on your property, and more strict locales. It's not even possible to live out of a parked RV while you build on land you own. So if I had a piece of property and I was building on it and I had an RV to stay in while I'm building, they're saying you can't do that in some areas. Wow. Alrighty then. Okay, permits are usually required for septic tanks and wells. Since sewage is a health hazard, most states demand that professionals install septic systems according to strict specifications.
First responders do the
Ah, you dick. That happened to me. This is the second time I've had to do this video because of that. Water also needs to be clean enough for living. Most places require professional well diggers to come to your property if you're looking to build a well. If you do not go through the proper steps in your area and build without permits and inspections, you'll most likely be subject to fines, and they fine you pretty good. At worst, you may have to demolish your buildings and tear up any septic or electrical systems you've installed. Make sure you do your research. Disconnecting a property from the grid may be illegal. In most places, it is illegal to disconnect property from the electrical grid if it's already connected. However, you can install solar panels that contribute to the power system so consumption remains nil. In some spots, you can use wind turbines to contribute to the existing electrical grid to keep outside power consumption at a minimum. Independent food production is monitored closely. This one didn't sound right to me, but most people who live off grid will want to produce some, if not all, of their food supply. While growing fruits and vegetables is almost always legal, giving them away or selling them can be problematic and may require permits. Selling processed foods like pickles and jellies will require licensed professional kitchens to maintain food safety requirements, FDA. It can also be illegal to store excessive grain. If too much of any grain like wheat, barley, corn, rice is on your property, you may need to conform to laws and the permitting required for commercial farms. I don't know. I'm sure there's some homesteaders out there that have a nice amount of rice and stuff. And it's nobody's business, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to livestock, that's a different. I think that would be a little bit different. Producing meat, eggs, and dairy can be problematic. Most of the properties within city limits or near other homes will fall under laws that make most animal husbandry illegal. It's important to make sure your piece of property is zoned for the kind of agriculture you want on your land to avoid hefty fines or the destruction of animals and crops. Wow. Why choose to live off grid? Living off the grid can be a positive experience for those with the chops to survive. It takes a profound level of problem solving skills to live independently without outside help. Anything that goes wrong must be fixed by you as you're the owner, and no one else is obligated to help you. People choose to live off grid because they want full autonomy over their resources. Publicly supplied utilities like electricity and water are controlled by local governments. For some, this level of oversight and taxation is not something they want to feed into daily. Utility bills are almost non existent. It's even possible to provide an off grid home with ample clean electricity via solar panels and batteries, which you're talking few $1,000s, $10,000. I don't know. Your solar is pretty pricey. While solar panels are a hefty investment, they make up for the cost in a short amount of time. Others choose to live off grid so they can pursue more natural lifestyles since off grid living is more environmentally friendly than living in a city. Living off the grid provides individuals the chance to reduce their carbon footprint. Next one is why is rain catchment sometimes illegal? And I've heard in some states it is. In some places, rain catchment is illegal. That's because the landowner technically doesn't own the water rights to the rain that falls on their property. Wow. Water that participates, from the sky eventually flows into streams, rivers, and ultimately reservoirs. The people or government that controls these waterways may own the water that lands on your property. Just that's because it's designated to end up in the water system and they are entitled to a certain water flow in those waterways. Depending on where the water table is, if rain catchment isn't available, it may be impossible to live completely off grid because you would have to go and get buy your water, have the water brought into you. I'm not going to read all that. Let's get on to the last one. What is a compost toilet and why they're sometimes regulated? A composting toilet works similar to a vegetable compost pile kept in yards. Bacteria breaks down the waste deposit in the toilet until it becomes dirt-like consistency. This is then removed and it must be buried or handled by a professional who disposes of it off-site. Compositing toilets are valuable options about valuable option worth considering for an off-grid lifestyle. That's because they don't use water to flush, which saves a lot of gallons of water. Major downside to a composting toilet is that if anything is off balance, the waste removal process can be disgusting. These toilets will also stink up the space they're in if they aren't operating correctly. Because of the risk of contamination is so high, a lot of places ban them so they don't have to spend resources on their regulations. The dirt-like creation at the end of the composting cycle is not usable in most garden spaces, as the risk of illness via contamination is very high. Because of this, most areas require a setup similar to a septic tank to keep the waste contained. This can be rather expensive to install if it's not already in place when the property is purchased. So that's just some of the things that they say about if you want to live off grid. And it's I've watched some people, the homesteaders and that prepper nurse is one of them. He was up in New York. Now he moved to a different area, but it takes time and takes money, a whole lot of money, more than $10,000. All the stuff that you need, unless you go completely rustic with hand tools, and maybe you're 20 years old or 25 years old. But to each their own. I'd like to live off grid. I just know I can't afford it right now, and I probably never will be able to afford it. So I thought I'd share this article. Well, one last thing: the water containment, the rain that falls. And I get in certain areas, like maybe somebody owns. I don't know. That just doesn't. Why can't you catch the rainwater that's coming off the roof, off your roof? And come down your downspout, put a hose over it to catch the sediment, however you want to rig it up. But once again, whatever. This is Wolfgang. I hope everybody has a great Sunday. I'm going to look for something else to share maybe later on. Not sure yet. Don't really have any plans. But that's it. I'll find something else and I'll chat with you all later. Guys, have a good day. Bye.